Now my camera isn't working.
Good morning. I'm Gregory Longini. I'm the Secretary to the Chicago Transit Board. On January 5th of this year, the Board Office issued a notice of change format of the Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee and of the Chicago Transit Board and the Transit Board meeting itself, scheduled for today, January 13th, 2021, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker issued a disaster proclamation on December 11th of last year to address this emergency. Section 12 of the proclamation declares that in-person attendance of more than 10 people is not feasible in light of public health. This means that Chicago Transit Authority public meetings occurring on January 13th, 2021 will take place only virtually. In addition, Illinois Governor Pritzker's Executive Order 2020-07, as extended by his Executive Order 2020-37, as well as Illinois Attorney General guidance to public bodies on the Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act during the COVID-19 pandemic, allow for public bodies to hold public meetings electronically to prevent the transmission of COVID-19. We can now begin the meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Chairman Alejandro Silva, you may begin the meeting.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to call to order the January 13, 2021 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes. Director Irvine.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Jakes.
Present.
Director Alvarez.
Here.
And Chairman Silva.
Here.
Public meetings. The quorum of the committee serve with all 5 members present.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of December 16, 2020. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I will now take a roll call vote on the December minutes. Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Alvarez.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
The motion is approved with 5 yes votes, and we may proceed to agenda item number 3, sir.
Our next order of business is the finance report.
Thank you.
Jeremy, fine.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Herb, let us know when Jeremy is ready to go.
You can proceed.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and I'll be walking through November results today. Next page. For farebox and pass revenues, we see those totals down approximately the same levels that we saw for October. We're down about $32 million to budget on fare and pass totals. Reduced fare subsidy is flat to budget, and non-farebox totals are down about $3 million. So overall, we're down about $35 million vis-a-vis the budget. But again, as we'll talk about here more in a moment, CARES funding is the critical component to bridge the gap that's created because of the pandemic. Next page. On the year-to-date numbers, we see similar trajectory on the various line items. Again, fare and pass totals down about $320 million. Reduced fare subsidy coming in basically at budget. Non-farebox totals down about 25. So overall, a little less than $350 million down to budget. But again, the CARES funding is the critical component here as we've worked through 2020 and going into 2021. With regard to our expenses, we've done a good job to continue to constrain expenses as best we can. We've seen labor coming in slightly favorable to budget, a little less than $3 million. Materials positive by a little over $500,000. Fuel and power have been very strong performers for us throughout the year. And we see almost $1 million on both of those line items. Injuries and damages and security services coming in as expected. and then other expenses coming in favorable by about 1.1 million. So overall, for the month of November, we were able to attain about $6.5 million of favorability vis-a-vis the budget. On the next page, we see year-to-date expenses. Again, very similar trajectory on the various lines where we see some slight positive favorability on labor, some slight but basically flat variance on materials. Fuel and power, again, very strong performers throughout the year. Injuries and damages and security services coming in basically as expected, and then almost $15 million of favorability on other expenses. So with all of those rolled up together, we have attained over $30 million, $31.4 million of favorability over the course of the year. Again, this is very helpful in allowing us to stretch those critical cares dollars as far as we can into 2021. So again, this has been a huge effort from the various departments here at CTA to ensure that we're, maximizing our CARES dollars and, minimizing our expenses as best we can. Next page, please. With regard to our public funding, we see a similar trajectory as what we saw last month. Again, sales tax down, but obviously not down as significantly as it was earlier in the pandemic. We see some slight unfavorability here, about $2.5 million. PTF down about $3 million. We have seen over the course of the last several months, some positive trajectory in the real estate transfer tax from time to time. So again, we see that here, for this month by about $500,000. So overall for the month, we're down about $5.5 million. As you see on the next page, this translates into a little over $100 million of negative variance on a year-to-date basis. But again, CARES funding is the critical component as well to help offset these gaps. With regard to CARES funding on the next page, we see for the month, we'll draw down a little less than $40 million. So on a year-to-date basis, that will put us a little over $400 million drawn year-to-date. This equates to about half of what we received. We received about $817 million early in the pandemic. Again, we've been able to stretch those dollars as best we can through 2020 so that we'll have some carryover into 2021. There was some good news at the end of the year with regard to another package being passed. We are still working with RTA on the timing and the eventual dollar allocation. We'll continue to keep the board apprised as to those conversations. But again, nothing has been finalized yet with regard to the dollar allocations at this point. But it will obviously help us close, a portion of our 2021 gap, if not entirely. So again, we'll continue to work with the RTA on those allocations, and we'll report back to the board with further information as it becomes available. Next page, please. With regard to the commodities, fuel, power, and natural gas, we see fuel, all three commodities, fuel, power, and natural gas, locked in for where we need to be for 2021. We continue with the RFP process for both fuel and natural gas, and we'll continue to look for opportunistic buys for future years on those two commodities. We'll continue to keep the board apprised as to any, updates on those commodity purchases as well. That concludes my report. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Yes, Jeremy, help me understand the effect of the vaccine application on ridership.
So I would ask Mike Conley to also jump in with regard to ridership and what we've seen with regard to trends, from the onset of the pandemic, and then how that has been affected by the second wave, and then what we would see potentially as we move forward.
But is the vaccine helping in getting the riders up?
So we saw that on the front end of the pandemic, we went from about 1.5 million rides a day. That dropped dramatically at the outset of the first wave of the pandemic to about 250,000 rides a day. That picked up as people became more, acclimated to the procedures that they needed to follow to remain as healthy as possible. By wearing masks and socially distancing. We saw ridership start ticking up, where we saw about 500,000 rides a day. When the second wave of the COVID started, coming out in the fall during kind of during that period, we saw ridership start to tick down a little bit, not nearly as dramatically as what we had seen previously. So we went from about 500,000 rides to about 440 or 450,000 rides a day. So it did have some effect, but albeit relatively modest compared to the initial, onset of the virus. Obviously with yet another, kind of tool in the toolbox with regard to the vaccine, that will obviously, again, help people feel more comfortable and getting back out on the system, getting back out just in general. So again, we're really on the front end of the vaccine rollout. I believe that the second dose of the vaccine just started rolling out within the last week or so. So I don't know if we really have any additional information with regard to how that is impacting ridership per se. But as we continue to gather additional information, and that cohort of people that are receiving the vaccine continues to grow, obviously we'll continue to post the board as to those updates. But again, it's a relatively small cohort that's received the vaccine, and it's a relatively small cohort within that that's received the second dose so far. So we'll continue to post the board as more information becomes available.
Thank you.
Director Alvarez, do you have any questions?
I do. This one might be for Mike. Regarding the free mask pilot program, how is that going?
It's going very well on the buses, and the mask dispensers have been installed in 2 locations on the buses. There was one on a bus I was on yesterday, and I haven't seen anybody actually draw a mask out, but the boxes are constructed very well to dispense 1 mask at a time and prevent touching the other masks that are in the dispenser. So it's a nicely set up unit. It's right behind the driver's seat in an area that's not interfering with the seating or interfering with the flip up seats for wheelchair access either. It's tucked in out of the way and still exactly very accessible to people coming into the bus.
Okay, well, that's good to hear.
We've done another round of distributing travel safe kits as well with masks and hand sanitizer, and that went out starting this week. So there's another several thousand that have been sent out to people on locations at bus and rail transfer points.
Yeah, the first round got a really good PR response. The press seemed to like that, which was good. I saw it on a couple of different things. So that's good. Hopefully people continue to respond positively to that. At least it motivates people to utilize the masks and to, feel safer, I think, and feel that it's cleaner. They could see everything is clean, but then this is an added plus. I think that will help people. So I'm curious, Jeremy, with regards, it's good to hear that real estate transfer tax is slightly up. Is this a trend or what are you? I'm hoping it's a trend, right? But any indications there of what we might see coming up?
Yeah. So, I don't know if we're quite ready to call it a trend yet, but 2 of the last 3 months we have seen positive favorability. So that is a good news story. It's really kind of driven off of, there's been a lot of, there was a lot of pent up, residential real estate transactions that were kind of held, so to speak, from the front end of the pandemic. There was kind of a lull in people buying and selling houses. So I think that some of that is kind of the pent up demand and selling that was taking place after everybody kind of got comfortable and started getting back out and selling property. The other thing that we're really kind of watching is commercial sales. So, we really want to see commercial sales starting to pick back up. There's been a couple of buildings, but, we really want to see, a larger trend on that. And again, we'll continue to update the board as we start seeing more information regarding commercial sales in the loop and elsewhere, but particularly in the loop.
Good job on containing expenses again. That's always very helpful. Thank you.
It's a group effort from everyone in the agency, so
it is.
we appreciate it.
Good job. Thanks.
Director Irvine, any questions?
No real questions, but just kind of following up on Director Alva Rosales and your question about the comment about the mass dispensers. I just want to say thank you to Michael Connolly and your staff and everyone for getting those mass dispensers, the pilot out there. I think it's a good idea. I'm glad you're able to figure out how to do it. And if anyone is interested in learning more about it, there was a really good presentation about the mass dispensers at the ADA Advisory Committee meeting on Monday, which was an excellent meeting. It went almost 3 hours, but it was very substantive with great feedback and questions from the ADA Advisory Committee members. And I thought really excellent responses from the staff. So there was a really good presentation about the mass dispensers and photos and more information about it. So if anyone wants to do a deeper dive, I would definitely recommend you check that out. So thank you, but no other questions.
Thank you. Director Miller, any questions?
Well, yes, just, I don't know if it's to Jeremy or to Dover. In light of CPS, their movement on this past Monday, getting the kids part back in school, and the mayor was here on Friday, and you can hear the continuous. How is that impacting? I know you don't have any numbers on it now, but how is that impacting, or is there any special move with CTA as it involved with children going back to school?
Well, I think, Director Miller, the students who are going back to school right now are the special education lower grade schools, who are students who are not necessarily the bulk of even our school ridership. So I don't think there's been any really significant impact to that one way or the other. Later, I think at the beginning of February, they will start to bring back grammar school kids, and some of those kids may actually use CTA. So we may see some slight increase. I think it's important to point out a couple of things here. One, the ridership that we're expecting from students is really on the margins of our overall ridership. This is not going to be a significant surge in ridership for CTA. Secondly, and this is really even more important, remember that students don't pay full fare. So from a revenue standpoint, in terms of Jeremy's view of the world, we may be getting more ridership, but we're not really getting the revenue benefit from that ridership that we would get from obviously adult full fare paying customers or monthly pass customers, which are terrific revenue generators for us. Clearly, Mike Connolly and his team have been working closely with CPS and making sure we're coordinating our services based on what they're doing at the schools. They continue to stay in contact with CPS, but it's my understanding, at least as it stands right now, the high school students who will be the ones that will probably make up the biggest ridership group for CTA are not coming back at all. They're remaining in virtual learning status, at least in the foreseeable future. And so I don't expect any substantial change in our ridership numbers based on these CPS ridership alone. And Mike, feel free to add anything to what I just said, but that's my general understanding.
That's exactly the case. It's the high school kids who really would have an impact, and they're not coming back in any short order here. So we won't see that.
Okay, thank you.
Director, thank you, Director Miller. Director Jakes, any questions?
No questions.
All right, Chairman Silver, there are no further questions, so we may now proceed to agenda item number 4.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance consenting to the assignment of a lease for property located at 1909-11 Northwestern Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, Blue Line. Bill Mooney.
Morning, Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Real estate staff is recommending approval of an ordinance authorizing the Chicago Transit Authority's consent to the assignment of a lease for the property located at 1909 to 11 Northwestern Avenue. Chicago Transit Authority leases retail concession space at the CTA's Western Blue Line station to the Sao Paulo shop, which operates a Thai restaurant on site. The Sao Paulo shop is requesting assignment of a lease to La Cafe Station Corp., who will operate the space as a cafe. The assignment will not affect the original terms of the agreement. The Sao Paulo shop will continue to be responsible for all rent and expenses set forth in the lease agreement if La Cafe Station Corp. Is unable to fulfill their commitments. Pursuant to the terms of the lease, CTA must consent prior to any assignment of the lease. I'll be happy to take any questions.
I don't have a question.
Director Alvarado Rosales,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No question.
Director Jakes.
No questions, Greg.
Thank you. There are no further questions, Chairman Silva.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to agenda item number 5.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing the transfer of real property located at 4331, 4359 West Chicago Avenue, Chicago, Illinois. Bill.
Thank you. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing the transfer of real property located at 4301 West Chicago Avenue to the city of Chicago. The city seeks approximately 47,000 square feet of vacant, unimproved CTA property located at Costner Avenue and Chicago Avenue, which is part of the CTA Chicago Avenue garage property. This land is required to support the development of the city's joint public safety training facility. As part of the agreement, the city of Chicago will be relocating the Chicago Avenue entrance for the garage and creating a new signalized entrance for CTA use, as well as providing an easement for said entrance to the CTA. In consideration for the property, the city has previously agreed to license to the CTA several city-owned parcels under ordinance number 020-99. I'll be happy to take any questions at this time.
I don't have a question.
Director Alvarado Rosales,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Jakes.
No questions, Greg.
We're finished with the questioning, Chairman Silva.
If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to contract number A1.
Our next order of business is contract A1, uniform contract.
That's correct, Chairman. A uniform contract change order.
Change order, yes.
Do you have any questions, Chairman Silva?
No, I don't have a question.
Director Alvarado Rosales?
No, I guess I remember when this came up the last time and we were going to go, we were going to try to go into some of the communities and trying to get some involvement with some of the stores that are in some of the communities. Are we still working on that?
We are. We have required that each, the vendor that we select has 3 different locations in the Chicagoland area. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping that, and they have to be north, west, and south. And we are in the process. We hope to bring this to you for the full procurement in the spring, because we are having oral presentations tomorrow. So we did that. We also wanted to get different uniforms so our staff would have a choice and maybe get something a little less expensive and increase DBE participation. So we are still working on all those, and we're coming towards the end. If we go with a different vendor, we'll need time to transition. So that's one of the reasons we asked for this extension.
Great. Thank you, Ellen.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Chairman Silver, there are no further questions, so we may proceed to contract B as in boy 1.
Our next order of business is contract B1A, a fuel contract.
Any questions, Chairman?
Can you tell us, okay, about how do you see the market in fuel? I mean, lately, okay, it's been okay, the news, okay, that fuel oil is going up.
So I'll jump in, Bill. I don't know if you had anything specific, but with regard to this is Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. With regard to fuel in general, obviously there's been some volatility as you were indicating here lately. Historically, though, and recently we've been at historical lows. We'll continue to look, for opportunistic buys in our general portfolio. This contract in particular is a little different, and Bill can kind of highlight, the specifics around this contract. But, in general, oil has been bouncing around. There's a lot of factors into that, but in terms of historic levels, we're still at relatively low pricing overall.
So just to jump on with what Jeremy raised, this contract as well as B2 are both piggyback contracts to the city fuel contracts. These are for the vehicles that are in our non-revenue fleet. Most of our work equipment as well as sedans and Jeeps and other vehicles we have. We use a shared fueling site system with the city of Chicago. They own and maintain these facilities, which helps us save cost. They're very, very expensive facilities to maintain on site. So many years ago, we actually bartered an agreement with the city to use their facilities. And as we actually have a shared fueling site, it benefits everyone to have a shared fueling brokerage contract for that. We also get benefit of the city's buying power. So being part of their agreements and their kind of massive buying system for fire trucks and police cars and garbage trucks citywide allows us to take some advantage of the economies of scale there.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions, Chairman Silva?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Thank you. Chairman Silva, we're finished, so we may proceed to contract B2.
No, that's what we did, B2.
We just did, I could be wrong, I thought we just did B1. Did we? They're both fuel contracts.
Right, okay.
The first one was
Okay, got it.
right.
Next order of business is contract number B2, an ethanol fuel contract.
Right.
I don't have questions.
I'm sorry, Chairman, you said you do or do not?
I don't.
Okay. On the ethanol fuel contract, B2, Director Alvarez-Rosales?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
All right. Chairman, so we're finished with both fuel contracts. We may proceed to contract B3.
Our next order of business is contract number B3, design build facility contract. I don't have questions.
Thank you. Director Alvarez-Rosales?
Yeah, I guess my only question is with the proposed DB subcontractors for design, could you explain to me a little bit how that works again? So they're what you
Yeah, of course. So in order to create more opportunities for DBEs, we split DBE goals on design build contracts. So we assign a DBE goal for design. In the case of this contract, there's a 30% goal on design. And then a goal on the construction portion for this contract, it's 27%. So in order to address the goal, the prime needs to identify their design team up front and show their commitment to the design goal, which they have. They have committed to 30.07% on the design. Because they don't know fully their packages and the design is not complete, they can't price out the construction DBEs. So they simply commit to meeting the 27% goal, and we'll have packages that they advertise as the design is complete, so that DBs can bid on, and other subs can bid on those packages.
So all these DBs that are listed will be utilized? That's
correct. They have committed to those DBEs being used during the design portion.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Irvine?
Director Rosales, just to supplement what Juan Pablo just explained to you. This concept of separating our DBE goal for design and for construction was actually a recommendation that we got from the DBE architectural and engineering firms, who had noticed when we started doing design build contracts that the primes were basically backloading all their DBE achievement in the construction side of the contract, which meant the architectural and engineering firms weren't really getting the benefit of the design work. So, you know, I think shortly after I came here, I met with the group of them, and they raised this issue with me. And I sat down with Juan Pablo and sort of worked through how we could modify our procurements to basically maximize the DB participation. And this is something that I know other agencies have now sort of patterned after us as a best practice in terms of really utilizing the benefit of design build while maximizing DBE participation.
Well, it's a big deal. I mean, that's why I'm asking.
Yes.
Also, that's why I'm asking if these that are listed are actually going to be utilized, because in many instances on the tail end, they would try to put a bunch and then not all of them were used. So
Right. So this allows us to avoid that type of behavior and really hold the prime accountable for maximizing their DBE opportunities throughout the entire contract.
mm-hmm. Great. Good to hear. I'm glad to hear other agencies are also doing the same. That's good.
Thank you. Director Irvine, any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Thank you. Chairman Silva, there are no further questions, so we may move to contract B4.
Our next order of business is contract number B4, a delivery service contract change order.
Any questions,
I don't have
Chairman?
a question. No.
None? Director Rosales?
No question.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Thank you. Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to contract number C as in cat, 1.
Our next order of business is contract number C1, vending machine contract. I just would like to hear a little bit of the details, okay, of what type of vending machines are we talking about?
Sure. This is Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. This contract gives Canteen the exclusive right to provide snack food vending machines at employee locations on CTA property. The initial term of the proposed license agreement is for 5 years with 2 one-year options to extend. Canteen will pay a monthly percentage of 26.5% of all gross sales generated from the machines, which is estimated to be approximately $54,000 per year, or $270,000 over the 5-year base term, or $378,000 over the 7-year full term with all options. Canteen will be responsible for the costs related to the installation. And Canteen was the higher of the 2 bids that we received, that came in, and they offer extensive experience and capacity to manage a contract of this size. They are the current food vending machine provider for the CTA at employee locations. And in addition, you may recall that they were also awarded the right to install PPE vending machines at CTA locations as well. So, again, Canteen's been a good partner for us in the food vending machines at employee locations. This contract came in higher. The bid came in higher than what we had previously received, from the prior contract. So, we're excited about that, particularly in the middle of a pandemic. I think that it just shows that, the value proposition here. We got additional percentage and additional funding that will be generated from this contract that will go to the Employee Welfare Fund as well. So again, we're very excited about the continued relationship with Canteen, but more importantly, the additional funding and that funding going to the Employee Welfare Fund.
So they are exceeding our expectations.
Yes, to date, but again, we continue to monitor, them as well as all contracts to ensure that, that they continue to exceed expectations. But yes, they have, and this contract, this new contract is exceeding expectations as well. So we're excited.
Good, thank you.
Director Alvarado Rosales,
No questions.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller.
Yes, are there any opportunity or any requirement for DBE participation with this contract?
Generally on revenue generating contracts, it's difficult to find DBE participation. Since this is for operating the vending machines, there are no subcontracting opportunities.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Director Miller. Director Jakes.
No questions.
Thank you. Chairman Silva, there are no further questions on the vending machine contract. We may proceed to contract F1.
Our next order of business is contract number F1, a change order to a personal consulting contract. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Director Alvarado Rosales,
No question.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Jakes.
No question.
Chairman Silva, we finished with that item. We may proceed to contract number G as in girl, 1.
Our final order of business today is contract number G1, a licensing and service support contract. I don't have a question.
Thank you. Director Alvarado Rosales,
No question.
Director Irvine,
No questions.
Director Miller,
No questions.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
All right, we're finished with the contracts. Chairman Silver, we may proceed to 6A.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place all 8 contracts on the omnibus?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. Chairman, we may proceed to 6B as in boy.
Since there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
That motion is moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I will now take a roll call vote. Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Alvarado Rosales,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion to approve the omnibus passes with 5 yes votes. So we may now proceed to agenda item number 7, sir.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I'll take a roll call vote. Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Alvarado Rosales,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 5 yes votes. So we are adjourned from this committee, and we will begin the actual board meeting in 1 minute. It is now 10:14, so we can begin. So we'll begin the meeting of the regular Chicago Transit Board meeting. Chairman Alvaro Rosales, whenever you wish to start.
Great. Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. At least I'm hoping this is going to be a happy year for all of us.
Good morning.
I'd like to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for January 13th, 2021. Would the secretary call the roll?
I'd be happy to. Director Irvine.
Here.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Silva.
Here.
Chairman Alvaro Rosales.
Here.
We have a quorum with all 5 members of the board present. Let the record show also that General Counsel Karen Simons and myself are actually in the 567 West Lake Street headquarters building. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first order of business today is public comment. Greg, will we have public comment today?
No, ma'am, we will not. There's no public comment.
Great. Next order of business today is the approval of the December 16th, 2020 board minutes. The minutes were previously distributed. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of December 16th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I will now take the roll call vote. Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Alvaro Rosales?
Yes.
The minutes are approved with 5 yes votes, ma'am.
The next order of business is executive session. It is my understanding, Karen, that there is executive session today.
Yes, Vice Chair, we will have executive session pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph C, Subparagraph 11 of the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you, Karen. I'll now entertain a motion to recess into executive session per the reasons stated by our General Counsel.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I'll now take the vote. Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Chairman, Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Alvaro Rosales?
Yes.
That motion to recess into executive session is approved with 5 yes votes. So we are now recessed into executive session, and then we will Thank you. We can now reconvene for the Chicago Transit Board meeting. Chairman Silva. Chairman Alvarez.
Great, thank you. I will now entertain a motion to return to open session of January 13th, 2021 CTA regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I'll take the vote. Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Miller? Director Miller?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Silva? Director Silva, are you?
Here, I'm sorry. Yes.
That's okay. No problem, Director. And Chairman Alvarez.
Yes.
Chairman, that motion to reconvene is passed with 5 yes votes.
Thank you. The board will now consider agenda item number 4A, an item discussed in executive session. Karen?
Thank you, Vice Chair. In executive session, we discussed the lawsuit brought by Christopher and Catherine Straka, S-T-R-A-K-A, versus CTA and bus operator Sharon Jones. This lawsuit involves an accident that occurred on November 21st, 2017 at approximately 11:30 a.m. at Austin Boulevard and 55th Street when a CTA bus collided with plaintiff Christopher Straka's vehicle. CTA admitted negligence in the case. The lawsuit was mediated this last week with former Judge Lynn Egan, and plaintiffs Christopher and Catherine Straka have agreed to accept $1.1 million to resolve this litigation in its entirety. The law department recommends settlement in this amount.
Thank you, Karen. I will now entertain a motion to approve an ordinance recommending a settlement of $1.1 million in the case of Christopher and Catherine Straka versus Chicago Transit Authority and Sharon Jones, Cook County Circuit Court, number 18L6591.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I'll take the vote now. Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Alvarez.
Yes.
The supplement motion is approved with 5 yes votes, ma'am.
Great, thank you. Our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva?
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning via Zoom video teleconference. The committee approved the December 16, 2020. The committee reviewed the finance report. The committee also reviewed the following 2 ordinances. An ordinance consenting to the assignment of a lease for property located at 1909-11 Northwestern Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, Blue Line. An ordinance authorizing the transfer of real property located at 4331, 4359 West Chicago Avenue, Illinois, to the City of Chicago. The committee also reviewed 8 purchase and sales award recommendations. The committee approved all items and recommends board approval of all items. The committee placed both ordinance and all 8 contracts on the omnibus. That concludes my report, Chairman Alvarez.
Thank you, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Director Irvine, seconded by Director Jakes. I'll take the roll call vote now. Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Alvarez.
Yes.
The omnibus motion is approved with 5 yes votes.
Great. Thanks. Our next order of business is the construction report. Bill Mooney?
Yes. Herb, are we ready for Bill?
We are ready.
All right, Bill.
Good morning. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer, and I have the construction report for you today. Moving to our first project, which is where you normally start, our Your New Blue Jefferson Park to O'Hare Signals project. The project remains on budget and tight to schedule. It has had some significant milestone events since we last met. We've commissioned the Foster Relay House and the Central Relay House, as well as put into service the interlockings associated with the Foster Middle Track. Last month, I showed you a bunch of infrastructure work going on in that area. This is just north of Jefferson Park Station on the Blue Line. It was a pretty big turnover of work, and we've received Nagel Relay House and have started preparations to install and cut over that house in the upcoming weeks. If we can flip to the pictures. This first picture here is what we call a tie-in rack. This is actually at Harlem on the Blue Line. This actually is a temporary installation that will allow us to communicate with the new signal system at Nagel, which is just south of this location. So when we install the new signal systems, we actually have to create some bridge connections to the old signal system so they communicate together and function as one cohesive unit until that house gets replaced in the future. So with each of these installations, we have to go into these older facilities and make some temporary work as part of that. So this is the new work at Harlem. Next slide, please. Here is an installation of what we're calling, it was called a wheel detector. It's associated with how we communicate information back to the control center about occupancy of trains, as well as how we do some of our diagnostic equipment. It's a newer technology we're using with this project, as well as Chris's signal job on RPM. It really is important for some of the advancements we're making and how we envision use of signal and leveraging that technology for management of the railroad as a whole. Next picture, please. Here they're installing the new power feeds for the Nagel house that is upcoming in the installation. This is, you've seen it similar at Jefferson Park and other places. We're bringing in 2 new Commonwealth Edison lines to support these facilities. Next slide, please. And here's a new signal in service at Foster. As this came online, it shows you a signal for the entrance into the middle track there, but also the orange box on the right is what we call a worker ahead system. So this is one of the overlays we have in our signal system that when workers are in the area of curves predominantly or other blind spots, we activate this system. It provides a flashing light to operators to let them know that there are workers on the right of way ahead of them. It also reduces the speed of the allowable train movement to a restrictive 15 in this circumstance. Next slide. My next project is our e-bus en route charging station. I'm very excited to report this will be the last time I'm reporting on this project. It has certainly been a challenge bringing this first in nation technology here and getting it commissioned and really getting it approved to be used in the United States on this project, which has been one of the larger hurdles. As we came to completion on the Navy Pier portion of this project, I think you'll see in the photos, it's a really beautiful site and add kind of to that facility. So next slide, please. So here is the electric bus charging station with the new mass on site with the electric bus for part of the commissioning process. You can get a sense of how that will work. Is there's a pantograph system actually that comes down from that mast that makes the connection to the top of the bus and allows that charge to occur on the bus. Next slide, please. Here's the new substation on site, and you can see kind of the turnaround is around that building, and you can see Navy Pier kind of in the background there. It's a very, as is the nature of a lot of our substations, it tends to be a little more nondescript, though it does have some nice kind of fine architectural features that augment off the rest of the complex. Next slide, please. And here's a little pullback so you can get a sense of kind of its existence in relationship to the rest of the pier. It's kind of a neat photo from a drone view of the turnaround itself in relationship to Navy Pier. So I really congratulate my team and the work they did to see this through fruition. It was a very challenging project for them, but in the end, I think it will be, a large step in our commitment towards an electric fleet. Next project, please. So my next project is our transformer replacement project, which remains on schedule on budget. We have completed the one transformer at Douglas Substation in the last month, and we've moved on to planning for Franklin. Franklin actually has 3 replacement transformers. They are actually oil type transformers, so they're a little different than the ones we've been installing at these other locations. It's also a pretty critical piece of infrastructure, so that those are actually in a different procurement path and in testing right now and commissioning. So next slide, please. So here's the new transformer being installed at Douglas. It's being dropped on the pad in the exterior of the building, and the photo on the right shows that the cabling being brought in to connect that transformer to the rectifier and the other pieces of equipment in the facility. Next slide. This is another project I'll be reporting on for the last time. This is our 98th rail shop bridge deck and drainage project. This is one of my favorite projects that we've done in this over the last year. It's been a great little project. It wouldn't necessarily draw a lot of fanfare as it's a maintenance facility, but it was really kind of a neat structural project. It was a great team with a newer project manager that's been homegrown out of the CTA. It's a veteran person that's taken a role as a project manager. So it was one of her first major projects, and she did a great job navigating it through to success. If we can move to the pictures, please. So here's a before after of the surface level of that bridge deck. It services the shop, which is a multi-story facility. This is the top floor where you actually enter it from street level. So you can see the drastic appearance difference there. What's most notable is that bridge was actually getting to the point that it was structurally deficient, and we were not going to be able to use it, continue much longer without this investment. So you can see that investment up there and the improvement there. Next slide. Here you can see a side angle, and you get a better sense of that structural challenges of that bridge and that deterioration point, and kind of that difference. You can also see all that deterioration on the facade of the building. So this was caused over water damage after many, many years kind of running down the side of the building due to lack of drainage. And so, you can see kind of that improvement that we made to the side of the building to repair that water damage. Next slide, please. This is the interior of that top deck. This is what we call the penthouse. So we broke out that entire floor, replaced it all, and that's new topping coated floor there. Next slide. And then this is the side of that facade underneath the bridge. Again, you kind of see the change in that water damage, the replacement of all those windows, as well as that underside of the deck. Next slide. And then this is actually underneath that penthouse floor. So this is actually, the penthouse floor was the ceiling to these two rooms. And so we actually came in and ended up replacing, as we replaced the floor, updating that structural steel, replacing the lighting, and the locker room actually got new lockers as part of the project. Next slide, please. And then this is ground level, where we actually ended up having to rebuild a portion of that wall and replacing all the doors associated with that. So again, it was a great little project, came to success. President Carter asked me to highlight some of the accomplishments we had. I think this felt like an even longer year than normal, and we often kind of lost sight of some of the things that happened early in the year. And so it was great to take a chance to highlight some of the great things we did. So we did over $125 million worth of construction projects come to conclusion this year. The most notable was our East Lake, Milwaukee, Illinois substation upgrade, which was completed in the early part of the year, kind of right before the pandemic. It was a very complicated technical project as we kept these substations online. We also completed our Logan Square station rehab, the rehab of Grand, Chicago, and Division. A couple of our quick moving fast tracks project, one on the southbound State Street, and our Ravenswood 2 investment. So if we can move to those photos, please. So here's some photos from the completed East Lake. This courtyard used to be kind of a rundown, it was a collapsed actually courtyard. It was structurally unstable because it was vaulted with all the cable vaults. It was completely rebuilt, as well as the facade of that building was completely rehabbed. It's a gorgeous old building in downtown Chicago. And then there's that new equipment that is really the heart of our system that keeps the trains powered. Next slide. Here's before and afters of Logan Square. It was a lighter project than a lot of our station rehabs, but it got a pretty heavy cosmetic overlift and a refresh, as well as some water remediation work that our customers could kind of appreciate that new refreshed look. It really brightened up the place. Next slide. Grand Chicago Division was a much larger investment as a project. So here's a picture of Grand before the project. Next slide. And here's the after. And kind of one of those unique things we did do at Grand was the contrasting stair treads as a pilot, as a request coming out of our ADA committee, as something that we look at advancing, and we're very anxious to see the results of this product and incorporating it in our ASAP projects as we go forward. Next slide. And then kind of one of the more notable features of the project was the improvements at street level and closing these entrances from the weather and kind of making them identifiers in this up and vibrant neighborhood off the blue line. So this was the replacement of the head house. So you can see here's the existing head house at Grand on the left, and then the new ones on the after side. A really notable architectural piece. Next slide, please. Then here's our southbound State Street track project. We went in and did a bunch of remediation work on the track and really a lot of water mitigation work, as these subways are underneath the water table in downtown Chicago. We are in a constant battle to keep water out of them to protect the tracks. And so this was a quick moving project as in our fast track program to mitigate slow zones. And it was a good investment of dollars in base infrastructure in the heart of our city. Next slide. And here's another one of our fast tracks project. This one, the large focal piece of it was the replacement of Kedzie grade crossing on the Brown Line. Kedzie being one of the higher traffic routes we experience at a grade level. That grade crossing was really beat up and it was suffering a lot of damage from the truck movement and the car movement in the area. It's very heavily used even as a bike and pedestrian route. We invested in a concrete tub here, which should provide us a much longer lasting life. It's a really nice investment and it was a good little project. So, and moving forward to 2021, it's a really big year. We spent a lot of 2020 planning projects coming out of the state capital program. And these are projects that we're looking to launch in some form or another. So we have the non-revenue vehicle shop, which the board just awarded, which we're very excited to start construction on that design build project. It will provide us a maintenance facility for our equipment that helps us maintain the tracks and are all rail-borne. We will be looking to award a construction contract for Berry, Damon, and Canal substations. These are part of our investment in the Blue Line infrastructure to provide for more train traffic as well as the advancement of the 7000s on those lines. We will be doing a northbound state and Dearborn fast tracks project, similar to the one I just talked about in the southbound state. This will be on the northbound side as well as an investment in the Dearborn subway. We'll begin construction on a new canopy at Irving Park on the Blue Line as well as replacements of the 2 escalators there. We will launch the design for our largest project on the infrastructure side of the state capital program, which is the renewal of the Congress branch on the Blue Line, which will be basically replacing all the track down to the dirt out to Illinois Medical District from the subway. And we launched the ASAP program. We're very excited to begin the phase 1 of the ASAP. And so Austin, we've already identified a design contractor and begun design on Austin. Really kicks into full design at the beginning of this year. We will launch design task orders for Montrose, California, and Racine. And with the 4 stations being done in RPM, covers actually a little more than what was envisioned in phase 1 of ASAP, because Racine is kind of a bonus station. And we will do a Harlem, up at Harlem on the O'Hare, we'll start design on a new bus bridge. That station sits in the median of the highway, and we have a bus turnaround that sits over the highway, and we have a bridge that's associated with that bus turnaround. At this point, that needs a major structural renewal. So it's a pretty large scale structural project for us and a very interesting project. All said and done, it's over $400 million worth of projects that will be kicking off in some form of this year. So we're a very busy year and we're excited to get going on it. Herb, can you flip to the next slide? Here's a rendering of the non-revenue shop to give you a sense of kind of what that facility is going to look like. It's a really great investment in the neighborhood. This currently is a warehouse and storage yard we have for material. We're planning on reorganizing the material to make way for the space and inducing this shop. The shop will also have a lot of landscape frontage on the public frontage, which will be a major visual improvement for the neighborhood, as well as we'll be incorporating public art, as is the nature of our commitment to the public art program. So, the next slide, please. And here's a couple renderings of the substations that are tied to, this is Damon and Berry substation. They are different than any substation we've done before. They are in the heart of 2 very populous neighborhoods, right on very noticeable frontages that we own there. And so we looked very deeply, and the team tried to be very creative about how they interact with the neighborhood and their appearance. So the top slide is, the facility is designed by Carol Ross Barney, who did the canopy at Bellman on the Blue Line as well for us. And Carol refers to this as the lantern. It's actually a glass top to the facility, a very heavy insulated sealed glass, but it will allow the building to be slightly backlit and kind of with a light glow at night, nothing more intrusive than what the street light's creating. And it has a terracotta facade that kind of dampers that. But it gives it this very neat feeling as you approach it, and it's very symbolic of the neighborhood's very Chicago elements in brick and terracotta, which are probably the most predominant elements in the architecture of Chicago. It's a really neat facility. I'm very excited to see it built. And the bottom is Damon. And Damon actually will also have glass as well, is a facility, again, designed by Carol Ross Barney Architects. And the overall engineering firm leading it is T.Y. Lin. And the facility actually will have these glass fronted windows on the 2nd floor that will be viewable from the Damon Blue Line station. So you'll actually be able to look from the edge of the platform into the top floor of the station and be able to see some of the traction power equipment, which is kind of a neat peek behind the scenes. They are still hardened, secure facilities, well protected for the infrastructure that's in them, but we tried to be very conscious about how they interact in these neighborhoods. Damon actually has a courtyard that will be right there on North Avenue that will have some public art in that courtyard, which will be the first time we're incorporating public art in an infrastructure project like this. And that concludes my portion of the construction report. I'll be glad to take any questions at this time.
Well, thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you for the summary as well, because honestly, we vote on these throughout the year, and just to see it all in one place, it's pretty astounding. I mean, all the work that was done, especially with the kind of year that we had, 2020 being, right, such a difficult year. So thank you for that. It's a lot, and so much that's coming also. That's really great to hear. I also just want to comment that you called it notable architectural pieces, which is great, because not only are they great at functioning and improving, the work that's being done in those areas and the service that we provide, but they're aesthetically pleasing as well, which is not, I don't think people realize how difficult that is to do. That takes a lot of collaboration. So thank you for that. I've got just going way back to the beginning. You mentioned something called the wheel detector that now is being used. I know that was like way at the beginning. Is that a constant? Is that something that's attached now to the wheels? What does that measure?
So as we've advanced signal technology, part of the goals of these installations is to bring down the length of what we call a track circuit, which is, so we have kind of this fixed block signal system. So we have these very defined segments of track in the signal system. And when a train enters that track, it communicates to the rest of the system and says, I have a train in this location, and here's how fast the trains behind it can go to not come up an approach of it. As the technology evolves, we try and shorten up those track circuits so that we can run more trains and run them faster and speed up the railroads. The next kind of evolution of that has been a lot of what they call computer-based technology, or CBTC, where it's a communication-based system that the train communicates with each other. And the wayside, we're an older system, it's a lot harder for us to advance that. So digital is kind of that in between for us. It allows us to have a much more finite track circuit that has smaller segments that can be identified, so you know exactly where in this 1,000-foot segment of track that train is. Is it at the far end? Is it at the near end? Which allows us to refine the system. The only place it gets a little more challenging is around interlockings, because the way that they're set up with all their divergent routes, which is where we cross our trains over. So we use this technology, these wheel sensors that actually tell us when the wheel of the train passes that point, which allows us to make assumptions about how it's moving through the interlocking and compute that through the system. And it's really also allows us to tell like when the train's in relationship to actual elements of the interlocking itself, like where the signals are or the switch points. And so it just allows us to continue to refine that technology and allow us to report that information in much more detail back to the control center. The more detail we have on where the train is, the more information we can provide to make decision-making tools and help us manage the system as a whole.
No, it's a little thing that does a lot, right? In the long run, it can really have a long-term impact. So
absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have any further questions, but I'm wondering if any of the directors do. Director Irvine, do you have any questions?
Sure. Well, first, just love the report and all the detail, and congratulations to you and your team on all the accomplishments this past year. Tough year to get stuff done. Really accomplished a great deal. So I was happy to see the ASAP stations getting on the board and moving along. One question with the Blue Line Racine, that's when I used to go to my office pre-pandemic, that's where my office is near. When that gets started, do you have a sense of if the station will stay open, or will it be closed for a period, or maybe just like the main entrance closed, or do you have a sense at this point?
So we're looking at a phased construction, very similar to what we did with Illinois Medical District. A large portion of that station work will try and couple with the track program. So some of the most obtrusive construction periods, we'll try and do in relationship the outages tied to the track construction, as they're right there, which is why it got pushed up in the ASAP program. As our commitment was, as we renewed the track on the Congress branch, that's when we would take on station renewals to be able to accommodate the out bases of those elevators. So as we're just launching the design task orders, some of that phasing and detail will be worked out through the design. Right now we're looking at an elevator side and a ramp adjustment to be able to make the station fully accessible. As the designer refines those understandings, we'll also be able to work through our constructability plans. But the intention is to keep the station functional for the most part.
And then, do you have a sense of the timeline for State and Lake? I know that's a CDOT project, not a CTA project. But do you have a sense of the timeline?
So CDOT is advancing a design package on State and Lake. They're at about a 15% design right now. President Carter and I were privileged enough to see an early concept designs around the station. I can tell you just from the early concepts, it will be another, really brilliant landmark station in downtown Chicago. It really is breathtaking in its design features. So they're pretty early in design concepts right now. I would expect, probably another 12 months or 18 months worth of design there, and then they, would move forward to procuring a construction contract for that. So, but it's pressing forward. It's a funded project out of the city of Chicago, so it's another one that's definitely getting picked up.
Okay, well, it just, and again, since it's not our project, I know it's not within your control, but I'd love, whenever there's an appropriate time, I'd love to get, a presentation to the board, kind of an update of, where it is, and especially if, when you see any preliminary designs.
Yeah, I think we certainly can touch on some of these, projects that we collaborate with CDOT on. Damon on the Green Line's another one that they're actually out for procurement on their construction contract for that station right now. And so as that moves into the construction phase, we do a lot of the construction management oversight, as we almost treat CDOT as our contractor. So we do actually get pretty engaged in it, and we can certainly provide some updates on those projects to the board as they go out.
Thanks so much, Bill. No other questions. Thank you. Good work.
Director Miller, any questions?
Well, just no, thank you. Great work for the team, and thank you, President Carter, for requesting that to give such an update, and just to know, in spite of the difficult time, on schedule and on budget, and still an exciting presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Silva?
No questions.
All right, great, thank you. One other comment, the e-bus, electrical bus charging stations, they look really cool, by the way, and the way they charge the buses looks really great too. A question on those, is there, I wouldn't anticipate it, but are there any issues with security with that, like with the stations themselves?
So the substations are very, we modeled them after our rail traction power substations. So they have all the features that we include in those facilities, and actually, as they're a newer advancement of them, they actually include cameras on the facility. All the doors are alarmed and secure, plus some other features kind of associated with it. But there really are hardened, kind of bunkered facilities, even with some of their neater architectural features. So one of the big challenges in this project, and I've talked about in some of the other months that the team had to overcome, was, as this was first in kind use of this technology, especially in our system, we did a really deep driven hazard analysis and worked with the designer and the technology developer, really, who's the main contractor, to work through kind of all the management tools around those hazards as we could come up with them. And there was a really complex hazard matrix that went with that with solutions. And that's kind of what delayed the project in its development and some of its design work. And so there was a lot of thought put around that as it was the first time we'd be using this technology out in the public like this. Unlike a rail right away where that electric is there, but it's a much more concise thing that people don't generally walk on. This is out actually in the forbearance of the system. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about how to secure it and protect it.
Okay. So it's all been well thought out way in advance, and it sounds like we're in good shape in that area. So thank you, Bill. Thank the team for all their hard work. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I mean, not enough credit goes to the team who really chugged through without missing a step throughout the pandemic. And I feel blessed to be with such a strong team and have the support of President Carter and the board as well. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. I guess next we're going to have a presentation by Chris Bruchel.
Herb, let us know when you're ready.
Happy New Year, directors.
You can proceed.
Okay, RPM Phase 1 Design Build Contract 2020 achievements. So we continued the construction of the bypass bridge in the area of the Belmont Station. We completed the foundations and columns and started the installation of the steel. You'll see some photographs to come as well as the one over my shoulder. We had a very busy summer and early fall installing track work at Montrose and Thorndale. As I've explained in the past, those two interlockings, very complicated pieces of track work, were installed during extended reroutes. That was some of the lemonade we made out of the COVID lemons, that resulted from impacted ridership. We were able to get some extended closures, work very closely with the front office, our media team, and to create those opportunities to advance the work in larger chunks instead of weekends, which probably would have increased the impacts on our customers and the communities we serve. Following the completion of that track work, we also have advanced the signaling portion of that. So the part that we completed was really the heavy civil part. It was tearing out the existing tracks, putting in new tracks, complicated tracks, as you've seen from photographs. And we followed up that portion of the heavy civil work with signal work, so the installation of the relay houses. As you've seen in Bill's project, that in and of itself is very complicated, and we sometimes joke that RPM is really an accessibility and a signaling project, predominantly, although it does have those big bridges in there. But this signaling work advanced. We installed 4 of the relay houses and began the commissioning of that work ahead of the upcoming Stage A. And speaking of that, of the goals we have for 2021, we want to start the construction of the new bridge. We call that Stage A, between Lawrence and Bryn Mawr. We anticipate that in the second quarter of this year. In order to do that, we need to complete the testing and commissioning of the signaling system in those 4 relay houses, as well as open up the temporary stations, which again, I think the board has seen numerous photographs, and they're coming along quite well. So one of the other major things, again, kind of looking over my shoulder here, and we'll have some photographs in a second, is we will complete the construction of the new bypass bridge. This is the bridge in the area of the Belmont Station. That's not that RPB, or that red purple bypass segment has a couple of elements into it. One is, of course, the bypass, which we'll finish this year, and the other one is that's the bridge over, and then there is the reconstruction of the 4-track corridor under. That will continue through the end of 2024. So those are both our accomplishments and our goals. We did have impacts due to COVID, but we also tried to work and look at some of those challenges as opportunities. And to a significant degree, we were able to minimize the impacts associated with COVID and advance the project successfully. If we could go to the next slide. So I talked about finishing the columns. I talked a lot over the past year about the aesthetics that are associated with that. This is a major bridge in a dense urban context. We looked to a large degree where this bridge impacted neighborhood streets, where it impacted commercial streets where it impacted commercial streets. We looked at kind of the rooms that those bridges created and tried to avoid dark, dank spaces where people felt intimidated. We tried to create light and decoration and in the columns, you see a design that really helps kind of break up the scale of that very large piece of concrete. You'll also see lighting that increases the sense of security. So it wasn't just about putting a bridge in, it was also about doing it in a way that was sensitive to the community around it. Next picture. The interlockings, this was a big part of last year at both Thorndale and Montrose. I'm just showing you a picture of Thorndale. You've seen plenty of them at Montrose. Next. And then again, the signaling portion of that. So there's the heavy civil, putting the tracks in, and then there's the signaling overlay, turning that on. Next. So progress on the work, it's still very much a design project. We have advanced the design a little bit beyond 75% for the main part of the design. That work continues remotely, and we are working very closely with the design build contractor to advance it and also to take advantage of DBE opportunities that were within that design work. This is a part of the contract that we had a separate goal on. JP will talk a little bit more in summary about some of the great work we did for DBE and community outreach and workforce development at the end of my presentation, but it was very much integrated into our efforts. And again, on the bypass, we continue to do steel work. You see over my shoulder a major beam that spanned over 4 tracks. We call this a straddle beam, and it was installed over the past weekend during a line cut. We have another line cut this weekend to detail it. So that work continues. Corridor signal improvements. There is work beyond the 4 relay houses that we talked about. Testing of that work and completing design continues relative to that. Pre-stage is mostly getting the smaller signaling system in the area of those interlockings and temporary stations up and running. And that work is going well. And then the larger Lawrence to Bryn Mawr modernization is really what I talked about in terms of the goal for stage A, to start building that bridge. You've seen pictures over the past year of these big pieces of concrete, the segmented box girder that will go through the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment, different bridge from the one over my shoulder, different type of bridge rather. That will start this year with the start of that stage A. We can go next. So are there any questions?
Well, once again, Chris, thank you again so much for the work that you and your team does. And thanks for the summary. Again, that really helps. I think similar, at least my comments, similar to what we said to Bill. I'm curious, though, because I know you also do a lot of community outreach, and it seems even on the designs, you're including feedback that over the years that you've gotten from the community, kind of what they want to see and what, not only on the efficiency side, but what seems to help, right, the community. Because as we know, when we get in there, we also help the economy with the work that is being done by you. But any lessons learned, rough year, but any lessons learned that you think we should be applying going forward, in some of the other not only the projects that you're doing, but that we're continuously going to be doing?
In terms of the outreach, there in a project, a design build project, things happen in a slightly different sequence, and they happen pretty quickly. So establishing a way to communicate with the various community partners has been critical. We actually worked very closely with the front office and with Veronica on some of the reports that we issue to various community members, and they've been very successful, well received. It is hard to communicate some aspects of design build. It does bring us, I think, a lot of value as an owner. Things move pretty quickly. And sort of explaining and understanding that is a slightly different process from something that we spent a lot of time designing. Bill talked about several design projects that will start this year. When we kind of started an independent design project, it's a little different dynamic in terms of engaging the community, taking their input and incorporating it into construction. So I would say one takeaway I have from this past year is especially on large design build projects, is understand that dynamic, understand the community. It's important to understand that dynamic and the communities that you're providing information to and how they want that information and what's important to them. This has been an unusual year in many respects. Though I think permanently will probably change some of the things that we do. In many cases, I think it's easier in some ways to get some types of public input from online sources, from Zoom meetings and other things, because people aren't forced so much out of the ordinary path of their lives. They can go home, make dinner for their kids, make sure everyone gets their homework done, and still attend a public meeting. So, some of that input and outreach will probably stay with us because it really enables more people to get involved. So those are a couple lessons on the public outreach and design build side.
Curious, anything with the workers? Those working on the projects?
Yeah, the biggest challenge obviously has been COVID, and working to stay safe yet advance the project. And as I said before, when we realized that we had impacted ridership and how we could potentially work around that by, instead of doing work on weekends, we could do work on an extended reroute, something that wouldn't be possible in ordinary times with normal passenger loads. So those extended reroutes were an important component that we brought forward in this year, and it was a testament to the flexibility and skill of our own operations department, led by Don Bonds, as well as President Carter's vision, of trying to make lemonade out of lemons, if you want to use that term. I've used it several times, but we wanted to mitigate some of the delays we were seeing in materials, and as crews inevitably had impacts due to COVID. So, we tried to be as smart as we could and communicate that within our team and outside the team to the community.
That was smart. I'll ask the other directors if they have any questions. Director Irvine?
No questions, just keep up the good work, and I hope 2021 is a fantastic year.
Thank you. Director Miller? No questions? Okay. Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Silva?
No questions.
Great. Chris, thanks again for all the hard work, and thank the team. We really appreciate it. Great job.
Will do.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have a presentation by Juan Pablo Prieto.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Good morning, directors, and a Happy New Year. Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. Before covering the Diversity Programs 2020 outreach recap, I wanted to cover the DBE attainment for two projects that Bill is closing out this month. First, on the electric bus project, we set a 30% goal on the design and construction of the charging stations. Through their subcontracting awards, the contractor has committed to 33.54% and is currently attaining 29.72%. We are confident that the contractor will meet their commitments on this contract. Next, on the 98th Rail Shop Bridge Deck, we set a 25% goal, and the contractor committed to 31.37% and is on track to meet that commitment. So next, I will cover our outreach for 2020. Last year, we hosted or attended 70 outreach events, which, given the pandemic's restrictions, shows our commitment to making sure the DBE community knows about opportunities with the CTA. Some highlights include 20 of those events were procurement focused, which includes pre-bid and pre-proposal meetings, meet and greets, and vendor fairs. 15 events were focused on training and education, including our CTA Small Business Educational Series. And 18 were in partnership with our technical assistance agencies. Because of these efforts, CTA is happy to report that we certified 38 new DBE firms in 2020. We awarded 39 small business enterprise contracts for over $5 million and 32 DBE contracts or subcontracts for over $65 million. On slide 39, you can see some flyers for a few of the events we held in 2020. We have used virtual meetings to continue providing training and education and networking opportunities for the DBE community, and have used our social media platforms to get the word out about our events. On the workforce side, if we can flip to the next slide, we have provided opportunities for individuals in our projects through our workforce goals. In 2020, WIOA eligible workers logged over 15,000 hours and earned over $745,000. Apprentices logged over 17,000 hours and earned $631,000. And economically disadvantaged area residents logged over 61,000 hours and earned over $2 million. These figures do not include RPM labor hours and dollars, which I'll cover a little later. We also developed and added the careers opportunity goal to our workforce goals in 2020. That goal, the first project that will have that goal is the project that the board approved today for our non-revenue rail maintenance facility. The careers opportunity goal combines the already existing WIOA goal and adds the ability to hire Section 3 residents. Additionally, we started a series called Construction Talks, in which we partnered with the building trade unions and other government agencies to talk about careers in construction. 5 out of the 8 modules were hosted with the building trades as we toured their apprentice facilities. As you can see on slide 41, here are some examples of our announcements of our construction talk sessions. Like with our small business outreach, we also use webinars to get the information out to the individuals interested in a career in the construction industry, and used our social media platforms to get the word out. Separately, I would like to cover our RPM outreach. On the small business side, we awarded 6 of the 11 RPM communication contracts in 2020 for over $3.4 million. The rest were awarded in 2019. Also in 2020, we conducted 17 RPM events with Walsh Floor. 3 were our traditional Meet the Contractor events, where Walsh Floor provided an update on the project and upcoming opportunities that were scheduled to be advertised. We hosted 2 educational outreaches, one being the HACIA cohort, which was part of our Building Small Businesses program, and the other to cover payment applications and how to get an invoice submitted and paid. We also hosted 4 sessions of our Building Small Businesses, or BSB program, which is a financial capacity program that connects small businesses with assistance to access capital and resources such as technical and back office support. In order to build awareness for BSB, we also conducted 8 informational sessions with some of our technical assistance agencies. To date, on the RPM design build contract, 53 unique DBEs have been awarded over $139 million, with over $100 million still to be awarded. On the next slide, I'll cover RPM workforce. On the project to date, WIOA eligible workers logged over 19,000 hours and earned over $921,000. Apprentices logged over 31,000 hours and earned $1.3 million. And EDA residents have logged over 53,000 hours and earned over $3 million. We also launched the Elevating Futures Scholarship in partnership with Walsh Floor and CPS, and awarded the first round of scholarships. The applications for the second round of scholarships are available right now and close on March 1st. They're available at chicagoscholars.org/elevatingfutures. We participated in 2 subcontractor sessions that Walsh Floor held to introduce the RPM workforce partners and the resources they can provide subcontractors to find individuals to meet the workforce goals. And finally, we hosted 2 virtual workforce training and outreach sessions for individuals interested in working in RPM. That concludes my portion of the report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, great work. Again, fantastic work, actually. Thank you so much. Question for you on could you reiterate, I remember the Chicago Scholars, but could you reiterate who those are going to? Like, who is the target market for that?
Yes, we're targeting students that are from economically disadvantaged areas that are looking to go into a career in construction, whether it be construction management or engineering.
And how many have we gotten so far?
So the first round, we awarded three individuals were awarded scholarships.
Okay, great. And we're going to continue doing this. What's the size of the scholarships?
Walsh Floor committed $250,000 to the effort. So we're spreading that out over the life of the project.
And are we potentially looking for even more down the road?
Yes, I mean, we would encourage any contractor that wishes to set up a similar fund or similar initiative, this was placed in the diversity outreach plan for RPM. And we include that diversity outreach plan in our larger contract. So that it's an opportunity for contractors to work with us to help, create opportunities for individuals in economically disadvantaged areas.
I just want to say, before I came to this board, what I used to hear before, and I'll say this to President Carter about CTA, is that there weren't a lot of opportunities for DBEs, that it was really difficult, that it was, we were always using, or the CTA was only using a limited amount. And it's great to see that we're doing everything possible to not only utilize as many DBEs as possible to encourage, the primes to utilize them, but that we're also putting into place opportunities so that they can better fine tune themselves as businesses. That's great to see. And then with the scholarships, it's even more so like, building up long-term opportunities. So that really makes me, very happy to see all this, because it's changed. I think the perception, I'm also hearing the perception has really changed over the years, which is great.
That's very good to hear. And as you know, and as I've discussed with the board members in general, my real focus has been on building capacity and not just creating opportunities for DBEs, but creating a pathway for them to increase those opportunities over time. And so, as you know, a lot of the ways in which we pursue our procurements today, a lot of the provisions we're putting in our contracts are all intended to not only maximize the opportunity for DBEs to get business with CTA, but in addition to that, we're creating both educational programs to support them and to help them develop their capacity. We're working with outside groups to increase their credit capacities so that they can pursue financially the other opportunities that are available. And then we're creating procurement paths with our task order contracts and others that are designed, like our mid-con contracts and things like that, that are designed to create smaller parcels of contracts that they can pursue, not just as subs, but also possibly as primes. And so, a big part of what I've sort of seen as my vision for diversity at CTA has really been focused on expanding the opportunities and improving the pool of DBEs to participate at CTA, and similarly setting them up to be able to pursue other contracts with other public agencies throughout the city. And obviously with the work that Mayor Lightfoot is doing right now, there's a lot more coordination occurring between CTA and our sister agencies and our sister departments to make sure that we're leveraging the work that each of us are doing to create opportunities throughout the city that are intended to enhance and improve the diversity pool of companies that can benefit from the work that we're doing, whether it be here or whether it be at the airports or whether it be in CDOT work or elsewhere in support of the ongoing attempts to improve diversity and inclusivity in the city.
Well, that's what long-term economic development is about for the city, that
Absolutely.
really the city. So, Director Irvine, do you have any questions?
No questions, just, kudos to President Carter, you and Juan Pablo, you and your team. So great work. Thank you.
Director Miller?
No questions. Thank you.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Great. Director Silva?
No questions.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks to the three presentations that we just had. We really appreciate all the work, and President Carter, great team effort, I think, by everybody. So, and thanks again for the summaries. I think those were really, really helpful. So if we have no further questions, our next agenda item is new business. Greg, is there any new business?
No, ma'am, there is not.
Okay, great. Well, with no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
The motion is moved by Director Irvine and seconded by Director Jakes. We'll now take a roll call vote. Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Alvarez-Alves?
Yes.
Chairman, that motion is approved with 5 yes votes.
Great. Thanks, everybody.